right, there's Greg. I guess I could introduce. Could you please give a warm welcome to Mr. Greg Van Avery from the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. So, as Maureen said, I am the Environmental Project Coordinator for the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority. And what we do there, my job specifically, is dealing with stewardship projects, land stewardship projects, which is wetlands, reforestation, tall grass prairie, and we also are starting to expand into other areas more agriculturally applicable, which helps us improve our partnerships with the agriculture community and work with them more, because most of the land mass around here is privately owned by producers. So we work with them to improve water quality, air quality, soil, that sort of thing. So thanks for having me, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
And I see some familiar faces. So this presentation, last time I was here, I presented on more of a public project, what we do in the public sector for planting trees in and around the city of Chatham. This is not a rerun presentation, so hopefully this will be somewhat more entertaining as well, but a different area. Actually, most of our areas that we do at the Lower Thames Conservation Authority. So Maureen asked me a question when I got here, and it sort of deals with this statement here. So it says that we acknowledge our financial support of our 10 watershed member municipalities. So what that means is, Maureen asked me, how are we funded? So we're funded by municipalities. We're not, because we're a watershed-based organization, it's all based around drainage. So the Lower Thames Valley drains all the way from Delaware down to the Lighthouse Cove on Lake St. Clair. So all the municipalities involved in that, which there are 10, that's where our funding comes from. Okay, so they support us in the efforts we do to control flooding, and our stewardship programs are mainly funded by grants that we write for or go after to help us encourage landowners to sustain their environment in a beneficial way. So that's how we're funded. Right now, we're doing a lot of wetland restoration. We received a fair amount of money to do that from the federal government. And so right now, 29 projects this year we're working on. We've got most of them complete because we're getting near the end. Wetland projects, typically we do those when it's very dry or it's frozen. And so it hasn't really started to rain this fall yet, so we're still able to do excavations. The reason why we do it when it's dry or frozen is because it's the least amount of impact on everything from the soil itself to all the critters that live in the soil or around the areas where we're doing this. Typically we do projects, stewardship projects in general, on marginal lands where previously it was too wet to crop, or the crop wasn't it wasn't yielding enough crop, and so those are the areas we get to work with, because those are the ones that no one seems to be able to make viable. So, well, we don't mind. We'll take any land you want to give us. We'll do anything. So these, so MNRF is the Ministry of Natural Resource and Forestry. ECCEC is Environment Canada and Climate Change. They keep expanding all these acronyms. Wildlife Habitat Canada is another organization that is financially supporting us. Of course, ourselves, and then the project landowners are key. ECWP is the Elgin Clean Water Program, so that's only available in Elgin. But and then there's the Elgin Stewardship Council, which is ESC, and then ALICE, and I'll explain more about ALICE in a bit, because ALICE has decided to make an attempt to come to Chatham, Kent, and I'll explain what that is. So this is one of our wetland projects. This is 4 months after we went in there and excavated it. So we excavated it in the early winter of 2017, and then this was probably midsummer 2017. So, it's a pretty drastic. Well, I guess you don't really see. I should have put a before. Well, there's the before shot here. So I don't know if you can make that out. It's not very big. I should have made it a little bigger. This is what it looked like before, and then we went in there and made this. So basically it catches a lot of the field runoff. There's a lot of interest in phosphorus right now, right, or nutrient loading into the Great Lakes because of all the algae blooms. So this project in particular, and most of our projects now, are designed to catch field runoff, which catches nutrients and allows that nutrients, slows down the water and allows that nutrients to precipitate out of the water before it enters the stream to go to the lake. So that's the idea behind these things. So, like I said, we're improving the water quality and the increased migratory bird, vegetative, animal, reptile populations, and it makes it more biodiverse because it attracts those species. And it helps us connect those corridors. So the progression of ecosystems requires that species move in and out of areas and migrate, right? Well, everything around here is so fragmented because everything's been divided up. We have a little bit here and a little bit there. So this is a way to connect those places, because typically it's based around a drain. So the drain comes off the field and heads to the natural stream, or goes and eventually ends up into the lake. And so there's all this little, it's sort of a direct connection to the lake and upland. So it's the best sort of corridor we have to, without having it busted all up into these little fragments. Yes?
I have no doubt that these efforts are improving from where we could otherwise be, but my question is whether we're kind of even staying ahead. Like when I look at the phosphorus, the algae blooms on the lakes, and I believe even the OFA has come out and said that agriculture is responsible for upward of 70%, which could obviously be more when the Ontario Federation of Agriculture is acknowledging 70% of responsibility. So I'm just wondering how quickly we're moving to engage farmers, and I'm not pointing there. You know what I'm saying? I'm just very concerned that we're seeing more algae bloom. We're not seeing less.
Okay.
And our phosphorus, I'm not aware that it's going down.
Sure. Okay. So there's this is a huge issue.
Yes.
And there's a lot of different factors. And so the government has put out their targets for phosphorus reduction, nutrient reduction on the lakes, which was the first step to sort of say, hey, we got to do something. The next step is, right now, we're just gathering everybody together that's a player, without pointing fingers, because that's a delicate matter. So we're getting everybody together in the same room, and then we're devising ways of gathering baseline data so we know where we are, where we need to go, and then we'll be able to figure out how we're going to get there. So we've initiated that. We're working with the government. We're working with landowners, the agricultural industry, to develop techniques alongside the monitoring efforts that are going on. So we need to figure out, okay, let's watch what's going to happen, and how does it work, and how do these wetlands work? Like, are they working? We know they're working because basically we put them in, we started monitoring them, and we discovered that where there was straight flow into the drainage ditch before, in a heavy rain, now they're collected by these wetlands. The wetland outlet, there's always an inlet and an outlet on the wetland. And so on the inlet, it would be maybe pouring in. The outlet would have no flow or minimal flow. So already we can tell it works because there's nothing leaving the wetland, and it allows it to soak in.
So where you've been able to put these in, it's working great.
The water, yeah. Exactly.
Yes. And
So
there's
that's
still more
one-
places, right? Yes.
Yeah,
And that's one strategy.
piece of the puzzle.
Right.
we're also looking at just field runoff, edge of field runoff. We're looking at ways of keeping that nutrients on the field with cover crops, buffers, and tillage practices, and how do we manage the on the field. And that's where our partnership with OMAP comes in, because they're doing a lot of study on, they've been doing this for years, right?
Right.
And so we're working with them to figure out how do we manage the soil to maintain the nutrients so that it's cheaper for farmers because they don't have to put so much on,
Exactly.
and then, and in turn it keeps it on the water. And what do we have to do to keep that cycle going on the land and keep it out of the water? So there's a lot of different things, and it's a slow process. Like this target that the government has put out is pretty ambitious. And after we sort of took some steps to get into this, it's a big deal. We're not going to be able to solve it overnight. So,
Right. Do you think within the next generation we'll see the end of our beach closures and our children being able to swim in our lakes without fear?
I don't know if we'll. Well, the hope is yes, but I'm always reminded, like, you never know what's going to happen with society. Like, okay, so let's say we get ahead of it and everything seems to be running fine. Like, you remember the phosphorus issues in the 60s, 70s
Yes.
with all the soap?
Yeah.
So we figured out, okay, it's the soap. We figured that out. The lake got better.
Yeah.
Suddenly now we're relapsing. So did someone forget about that? Like, there's always there's some sort of gap. Once you get things up to par, everyone seems to forget why we got there, and then, it happens again. So I don't know. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I think that we're on the right track, at least right now, to better understanding of it. I think once we understand it better, we'll be able to control it better or easier.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So here's another one that's, after 5 years. These ones are all, those two were all around Chatham. The first one was out by Rondo, Kinley line, and then the other one was Stevenson line. So these are our watering monitoring programs here. So there's a couple different things going on here. We have this glassy program. We have edge of field monitoring going on, gap analysis, and we're monitoring some of the pump stations out in the low areas of Dover. And then we're doing our regular water quality monitoring for the product at various wells. And we've always done that, but we've expanded it. So Rondo Bay, we have 9 monitoring sites that we're working in partnership with OMAPR to determine what the nutrient loads are, how much is leaving, where is it coming from, just to see what's the baseline of what is happening out there. And it's the OSCIA is the Soil and Crop Association as well. Okay, so that's all happening in the Rondo Bay area. And Rondo Bay is unique because it's a sub-watershed on its own. So it's sort of one of those things where you can study it and you can scale up the size to, sort of like, okay, you've got heavy agriculture in the watershed, and what are the parameters, what are the causes? You can look at that and you can say, well, if you scale it up, you can kind of get a ballpark as to how an overall bigger watershed might look. So it's interesting that way to study. Plus, it has a lot of rare species too, so it's sensitive as well. So GLASI stands for Great Lakes Agricultural Stewardship Initiative. Okay, so that's a big, long title. But basically, it means that we're, this is what we're doing. We're monitoring water quality at 3 pump stations that discharge into Jeanette's Creek. We're looking at nutrients. We're looking at the flow of those nutrients, or how much water is moving, and how much nutrients is in that water. We have automatic samplers and flow meters that are tripped when there's going to be a rain event. There's those three pump stations, Dauphin, Erie, and Boudreaux pump stations. So we're watching that. Every time there's a huge event and they get flipped on, we take samples. So we know when it's running and when it's not. And then we're implementing the best management practices on that watershed. So the Jeanette's Creek is also a sub-watershed of the Thames. It's kind of its own sub-watershed, and that's why we tried to monitor here. Everybody likes to do Rondo Bay because it's attractive, but we also need to look at other areas just to make sure we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. So it's all about seeing the water quality in these areas and coming off the farms. So, and then there's this edge of field monitoring is a little bit different, where we compare two adjacent farms. One's conventional farming, like the regular tilling, corn, beans, wheat, and then just complete conventional. And then another one, including BMPs, like no-till. BMPs are best management practices. So no-till, cover crops, trying different things to try to see what effect that might have on nutrient loading. We also have auto samplers there as well. And we look at flow, and there's always new parameters actually coming up all the time, because once you have this thing installed, you can say, okay, well, what about this, or what about that, and we're always adding data to it. We're just getting up and running now. We had the infrastructure to do it. We can watch for different forms of phosphorus and nitrogen, and temperature and different things. So this is kind of the setup for this device. So this is when they were installing the edge field monitoring. So basically, it comes off the tile header. It grabs the water from the tile, looks at, we take a sample. There's some data loggers out there. We have two staff that go out and collect the data, and then we put it into a database. And then that's collected so that we can analyze it, and we can see trends, or we can look at what is happening with the water quality right in the field. So historically, for the province, it's a little bit different here too. So we used to monitor 11 stations in the Thames and its tributaries during the warmer months of the year. And then now we got a bit more money from a grant from LTVCA. That's the Ministry of Ontario Environment and Climate Change. So, another big acronym there. But so now we sample, instead of sampling 11, we've doubled it to 22. And we know that the majority of nutrients are entering the streams and rivers in the off season, like in the winter time when it's snowing and there's no crop. Because in the summer, everything's growing, everything's taking up nutrients, and there's less going in. So, but in the winter time, there's snow, there's it's open field, there's no crop, there's just soil, and it tends to allow nutrients to run right off. So, yeah, we're doing it all year round now, and this, the Rivard pumping scheme that down at Rivard Dam, it's right at our diversion channel, right off of what is that, Indian Creek Road, right there. So that covers 22,000 acres, and so we're monitoring that as well for brown criminals. We have 9 groundwater wells, so that was all surface water. But now on top of that, we have 9 groundwater wells, so we test those frequently for various parameters. And 7 are sampled once a year in the fall, and it's a general chemistry, on metals and stuff that we look at. Data from that level loggers is downloaded every 2 months. So we're just looking at what the groundwater level is, so we can determine how our water tables are looking. Because another important thing about factor of wetlands is that they recharge those groundwater levels. Like everyone's draining their fields, which means all the water is gone as soon as it hits the ground pretty much. But that means that the water table doesn't get a chance to build itself up. And so wetlands help with that kind of situation. Okay, so let's move on to something else. So we've got a program where we're working with prairie, like tall grass prairie, cover crop buffer programs. So this is a different idea where we're trying to use these buffers and to soak up nutrients or slow down nutrients. So this is what a prairie looks like. There's corn on the right there. On the left, this is a prairie that we did about 5 years ago after we seeded it down. A lot of people see that they see weeds, right? But it's really pretty diverse with beneficial insects and birds, and it really a lot of different flowers that normally, a lot of the prairie flowers are native. And until I started working with this stuff, I'd never seen any of them before. So it's very interesting, very, very nice. But again, it's open to interpretation. So Alice, again, here it is again. Alice, what is this Alice? Well, I'm getting to it, but basically they're providing incentives for people to do this. Okay, so that's what the whole thing behind Alice, Alternative Land Use Service is what it stands for. Is meant to encourage projects like that along the buffer. And then of course we have our reforestation program. We did 26 projects under private land tenure this year. So the biggest one was the NCC Clear Creek project, which is now complete. We did it over 2 years, and it's 140 acres of brand new reforestation. So we're very happy about that. It has 5 wetland cells on it, and it was one of our biggest projects ever. So we were pretty excited to complete that. On the left, that's an example of how we store our trees. So we store our trees out at Manatee Fruit Farm. It's a big apple cooler, and so we get them shipped in April when there's no apples in there, and we make sure that they vent. We have to vent it out because apples produce ethylene gas, which can kill the trees. So we make sure that we get that vented out. Usually by that time it's been sitting idle so long that there's no gas in there. But we always get the fans running and get it out of there. So we store. This year we had to have 2 coolers because we were at 130,000 seedlings. So those skids that you see behind me there, that right there is probably about 50 or 60,000 trees. So we had to fill up 2 of those rooms to have space. And we keep them at about 2 to 4 Celsius degrees so that they stay dormant because we don't want them budding out before we plant them, right? It's causing no stress. And then there's planting. So, this is planting the Clear Creek site. It's not typical that we get a site that big, but I just wanted to show you because I'm proud of it. This looks pretty neat, but it looks like we didn't do anything there because the trees are still dormant. They don't have any leaves, right? Shortly after they start to bud out, and you can see them. We also planted a cover crop. What we do here for our projects for reforestation, we like to use cover crops that are low growing and don't compete with the trees. Grass is the worst enemy of trees because it produces a mat, and then it takes up all the moisture in dry time. So what we like to do is, what we did here was we used Dutch white clover. It grows maybe about 8 inches tall, tops. It works great because it doesn't produce a mat. The water can get through the tree roots, and you can still see the trees. You don't have to mow it all the time. It suppresses weeds. So it's a nice option when you don't, obviously we don't have Roundup Ready trees, so we got to do something about that. Just the next door neighbor,
And we're glad you don't have Roundup.
Yeah, most people are just a little bad. Anyway, yeah, so that's just another shot there. Basically, if you have land and you want to do a project, you have to be able to prepare it. By preparing it, I mean just like opening up the soil. Like you don't want to plant trees into a sod bed because it doesn't allow the machine to work properly. It won't close. A sod mat will just open and then it will just kind of go like this, and then it allows air into the space where the roots are. stone is, and it kills the trees. And then you have to maintain the site for the first couple of years, and that's where the clover really helps. You don't have to do. You only have to mow it a couple times a year, or maybe do some herbicide if you can handle that. But the first 3 years are crucial to get them up above the weed level. Once they're above that, they just go. And we also do, this is more based, this is kind of like what I presented on before. We do reforestation with public groups and schools. So we work with the CK Retention and Traction Committee, we work with the CK Public Health, we get schools out there, we work off the TD Bank has a program where they like to do tree days and get volunteers out. So we do all of those things as well. And we also deal with this stuff. You've probably seen this everywhere. So we've there are a few wetlands where we can't do anything with the wetland until we get this under control. So, and right now we're also working with the City of London, is coming up with a strategy to manage fragments. So we're working with them as well to develop some sort of strategy to handle it. The biggest areas are coastal. Like we have a lot of wetlands on the coast, especially out by St. Clair, Lake St. Clair. And stuff's everywhere. So there's no doubt that we're never gonna eradicate it. But we want to carve out some sensitive areas or targeted areas that we think are valuable. Like for instance, out by the St. Clair Wildlife Area, that's a huge migratory bird ring, and so we feel it's very important to carve out some space to reclaim from this stuff that's taking over. So we have a few projects out there. We've done quite a few acres of this stuff over the years. And anywhere we find it that we're doing the work, we try to eradicate it there so that it doesn't destroy our project. Right? A lot of people think, oh, well, they're just digging a wetland, it's just propagating and stuff. But we have clean machine policies for our contractors, and we also do any control before we start working on, we want to make sure we're not spreading this. So the ALICE program, it provides annual payments for each acre enrolled in the program. Okay? So basically, if you're a landowner who has a drain running through your property and you want to do a buffer strip, it's 1 planter width wide, whatever. Or if you have marginal land somewhere, like a low area that just doesn't produce, this program is so that you can get rental payment, or they use it. They pay annually, but it's basically like a rental fee for that land. So, it's another incentive to help landowners say, hey, this is valuable. It puts a number to it, like it says, hey, there's something there. It's not just weeds. It's not just a crappy area that doesn't produce. There's something valuable there. That's why we don't turn down anybody who wants to do projects almost anywhere, because trees, wetlands, prairies, all valuable for the environment, clean air, clean water. So, anyways, we have an information night for that happening on November 23rd. There's a flyer on the table regarding that. And then we also have 2 stewardship nights for landowners. Now, these nights are designed to, because our watershed is so long, it goes from Delaware to the Lighthouse, we need to sort of break it up into 2 pieces, and that's why we have 2 offices. We have one on Longwoods Road and also one here in Chatham. So we needed 2 stewardship nights to sort of cover those areas. But basically, it's so that landowners can come out and learn about our incentive programs, and if they want to do stewardship, they can contact us and understand it. They get to hear from landowners who have done it before and might be interested in, and that way it's like a testimonial. They can see people who've done it, they can ask questions and that sort of thing. So on November 24th, it's in the Dutton area. Again, there's a poster there that has all the details on it. And then November 30th in Blenheim, the golf course, but all the details need to be there. So that's it. Questions? I'm sure some.
Only dozens. Only dozens. Anybody else
Anyone
want?
else?
So your funding you get from the municipality,
Yes.
is it matched by the province or anything like that?
No, it's no, it's funneled. From what I understand, the province is there, but they download everything to the municipality. So the province has said, yes, the municipality has to deal with the funding, but the province is saying they have to do it. Like a municipality just can't opt out of having a conservation authority like here. So that's kind of how it works. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess. Well, that's part I was wondering is, could a municipality ever opt out of it because they just don't want to do it anymore? But if there's a law that requires them to do these projects.
Yeah, they're required to have a conservation authority, and
Are they required a set amount every year that they have to contribute? Or are you at limbo every year? As this year they gave us 50 grand, next year they gave us 20.
well, we have to negotiate that. There's always a negotiation problem there, of course, with any budget. But we negotiate that. But they are mandated. That's where we have the provincial rights, I guess, is that we can say, look, this is what we need to operate here sufficiently. This is what it is, and then it's open for discussion. But I think at the end of the day, if it came down to it, if we really wanted to push something there, we could probably do that. But again, that's not really my role in the organization, so I'm not real key, privy to that dynamic of the organization.
So, but you're governed by a board, correct?
That's correct.
And it's a community board?
It
Or is it an
is.
appointee board?
There are municipal councilors appointed. So and it's by Chatham has 3, but every other municipality has 1. It's like a per capita thing.
Okay.
And then so we have the board, but then if the municipality doesn't feel that a councilor is up for the task, or if they can't find anybody who's really willing to sit on there, they can appoint a citizen who has a vested interest that might do the job for them. Like, for instance, one of our board members is Stan Cavani, and he's a Western professor that, for whatever reason, London appointed him as their representative.
How much education or emphasis is put on farmers not plowing the right to creek-fed or whatever? I was at a presentation a few years ago, and the people that did the presentation were from east, so Elgin and a little bit further, and they said, Chatham's the only place we've ever seen where they're plowing the lake to the pictures and all the erosion. Is there much effort being placed on education and the?
There is. So within this BMP program that we have, every year we do a promotion, basically from now until late February, March, and we go to all those farm meetings. We try to hit all the AGMs for the farm groups, and we do presentations, and we go to. During the summer, we go to a lot of the plowing matches, or we go to the, anytime there's an event based on agriculture, we want to be there, and we want to have our information, and we either present or we have information around that, showing, buffer strips, cover crops, they work, this is why, this is how. We're doing what we can.
The plowing match is one that I struggle with. I mean, we're still celebrating ripping the soil to shreds, like a living ecosystem, and there doesn't seem to be a very much consciousness around how destructive and out of date that practice is.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I went to a soils summit, it was called, Soil Summit out of Guelph, and about a couple of months ago, and this is a thing where they have a bunch of speakers one day, and then they have a field tour. You get on a bus and they show you different things, and they show you different farmers and what their techniques are. And surprisingly enough, there are a lot of keen farmers who are basically saying that they, when you till the soil, you're destroying that microbial activity. Why are you doing it? So there is a lot of that within the agricultural industry. There's a lot of people who, who aren't into, who are against sort of tilling. But then there's the other half who say, well, I got to do this because I get better yields, and it's this way. And there's a lot going on in the farm world that you've got people on one hand who have lived on the land all their lives, and they know from experience what works for them, and the next guy knows what works for him, and so, or girl, and so they have different methods, different techniques, but they still essentially get to the same result. So, if you know anything about farmers, they're all trying different things all the time.
Yes.
And so, we're just there to offer beneficial practices as well. I try to get them to give incentives to them to do something that we feel is going to give out better water quality. Because food is one thing, but water and air are the other two ingredients that we need. So, yeah.
And that's, I'm really, really pleased to hear the incentive programs, because we've seen from our efforts at a tree bylaw that, the stick approach has not been effective in a number of, at least in that way, and then certainly others. So more of a carrot approach has got a lot of potential, but I don't know.
There's a bit of misconception about a bylaw. I mean, you can have a bylaw, but if it's a Swiss cheese bylaw, what's the point? So if you have a bylaw that says, okay, you tear down this forest, you're going to be fined, say $10,000, and then when it goes to council just says, oh well, just pay us $2,000, it's okay. And then it's like paying the fee for they're just paying a fee to do it. So, and that happens, and it happened in Lampton. So Lampton County has a bylaw, and this sort of thing happens. So if we do have a bylaw, it needs to be,
So the education is and the actual outcomes is what we really want to focus on, right? It's like, what are we actually doing for the stewardship, for the land, for the prevention, regardless of how you get there, and the bylaw may not be the way to go.
It may not. It
Yes.
may not. And I mean, if it makes people so upset,
Mm-hmm.
let's try something else. Like, I don't, the idea is that we need to work together on this problem, and so if we can get to that, we want to be good. But it's just, it's a lot of attitudes about land rights and don't tell me what to do and all this stuff. But I mean, you have bylaws everywhere, so it's not like there's bylaws in the city. So I don't know. That's just
Well, and the lake doesn't have voices, right? So, I mean, in terms of the outcomes and the impacts of individual landowners exercising what they perceive to be their rights, leaves our collective environment in a state of terrible disrepair at the moment, in some aspects. So that's, there are changes in that area is, I think, something to be part of, which is a big issue. I appreciate. Yeah, big.
When I got into the environment, I thought it was going to be all outrageous, going outside, planting trees, taking care of the land and whatever, and all of I discovered pretty quickly that there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of desk work and groundwork to be done, raising funds to stay afloat, to expand, and to try to partner with groups, educate for cultural change.
And speaking of that, we wanted to say, do you have any suggestions for partnerships? We're a small group, but we do get some money from OMAF every year. And we're mostly focused within Chatham, but there's a number of horticulture societies, I'm sure you're aware, throughout our municipality and throughout this area. And, there's always the possibility of trying to, link together across your area.
Well, here's something for you. We're always brainstorming and dreaming up things and putting them on the list of things we want to do.
Possibilities to discuss, yeah.
But we right now we're trying to hook up an official canoe trail, or a canoe route. So what we want to do is we want to start somewhat small. We want to put a few signs on the bridges here. We want to Perry Landing is a good spot for a launch. We want to have about 5 launches. We want to tie it into the Delaware First Nations Trail. They have an interpretive trail there.
Mhm.
We want to have a launch there. We want to have one at Thamesville. We want to have one at maybe Kent Bridge. And, tie it into Fairfield and the whole 1812 and that sort of thing. So I've been working at this for a couple of years now, and I'm trying to raise the funds to do it. And I'm getting there. But, and we're not, this could happen, this could be Thames River wide. But we're going to start with something we can accomplish.
Right.
Because I think once people, if they get on the river and they see the water and they see the environment, they might have a better understanding. Like, well, maybe we do need to clean this up a little bit, or that kind of thing. So I think, and I think it would attract tourism dollars. I think that it would be, when I first started working in Chatham here, our office is right on the river, and I never saw anyone using the river. I lived in Calgary for a couple of years, and I just remember always people are out using the river, using the outdoors, and here it was like no one was doing anything. And so that kind of inspired me to try to get this official canoe route. Like, if anyone's been up to the Saugeen River, they have a beautiful system where it's very clear as to where you launch, where you get off, how to get there from the traffic. So this project that I'm trying to do is modeled after that, and it will have traffic signs to get there. It will have bridge signs for kilometers. It will have kiosk signs for education about that. So that's what I'm working on. So if you want to be involved, I'd love it. If you want to be part of that, it'd be great. I could send you a list more of your project ideas.
Thank you. I think that's, to involve some students, to look at different things that we could do. And I think more and more our young people are interested in the environment and aware that there's, having more opportunities to get engaged with our rivers, with our lakes, with our trees, with our forests. Yeah.
Yeah, the best way
urban.
For me anyway to engage the schools and students is to give them something to do, right? So these wood shops and these tech shops, they have stuff and they need projects, and so you need some signs, or you incorporate that.
Make them, yes.
And then next thing you know, they're part of it. They take ownership of it. Then the next generation. The youth education is huge for cultural change, because I remember when I was a kid getting taught about recycling. Well, now I still think about, like, why is there all this trash after the snow melts? Who's still doing this? You know what I mean? So I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I'm formally on behalf, and when I let go of this, I'll be getting you the envelope. On behalf of our group, I want to say thank you very, very much for coming, and we can have it. I want to just wrap this up so that we can give Greg a round of applause and say thank you very much for speaking with us. Please. Thank you. Thank you.